Hello, I'm JJWalsh in Hiroshima. This is Seeking Sustainability Live with Baye McNeil, take 2. Hopefully, second time is the charm. So, Baye, you were saying when we were trying to restart again that you thought that might have been the spam might have been coming from your YouTube channel.
Yeah, but I don't know. Actually, I don't know where it was coming from, but I noticed that when when so maybe it automatically went live on my YouTube without me knowing, and
Yeah.
because that would
Well,
definitely would have been unintentional. I had no intention of doing that. So this time when I did it, I didn't. I I made it so that it would not go live on YouTube, at least not my YouTube channel.
Because it's going live on my YouTube, but I usually think of that as a really good thing about Haps, that you can go live on not only the host's social media, but also the guests.
Right.
But in some cases, like we just discovered, maybe that's not the best.
Well, I don't even use my YouTube channel.
Right.
So I don't know if I don't have like I don't have people's I don't have that type of energy around me generally. I mean, I've seen sometimes on Twitter somebody might leave a funky comment and stuff, but when I made that comment earlier about people in general, it wasn't about necessarily YouTube or anything like that. It was just overall, it just seems like there's a lot of like funky people all over the place now. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me sick to my stomach, really, just in general.
It is. Yeah. It is. And it just saps your energy.
Like it does.
When someone is, what's that new term? Gaslit. When someone gaslights you and you think they're for real and you go through the effort of responding and they're just having a go at you for entertainment. It's so awful. I hate it.
It is awful. It is awful. It disinclines you to interact with the people who are genuine, who genuinely want to learn something. He's like, no, this might be somebody trying to gaslight me. So now you're suspicious of everyone. And I think that's their intent. And, and unfortunately they're successful quite often because a lot of people just shut down. Like, I'm not being bothered with this foolishness. Forget this. It's not worth it. And that's terrible.
Well, it stops the communication. It stops the connection. It stops the learning and progress and moving forward, which is the only benefit of social media, if you ask me.
Yeah.
when you can have the good conversations, when you can get informed and enlightened, that's what it's all about. Yeah. Annoying. It's par for the course, I guess. You got to take the good with the bad, right?
I guess. I guess.
Yeah. But then you can understand why people are like, I'm taking a break. I can't deal right now. It's too much.
That's what I've been doing for the last few months. I've been taking a break. Ever since after the NHK crisis nonsense, I just, I took a break. I just started focusing on the house and keeping it small, focusing on my 2 projects that are underway. Pretty soon I got to get back into the mix because now I gotta promote 2 products. This audio book and the Japanese book in a language that I'm not fluent in. So that's going to be fun. And so yeah, I got some big work I have to do in the future. So I've been kind of, just kind of rest and focus my, kind of get charged myself, recharge for this upcoming push I'm going to have to make.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk a little bit about the translation because this is a big deal. Your book translated into Japanese is going to reach the audience that you're writing about. How are you feeling about it? Are you okay? And
I'm torn. I'm torn because when I wrote it, I wasn't writing it for Japanese readers originally, right? This was being written primarily for Westerners, I think.
And to get the tone right, you got to get the right tone. You got to, explain the nuance, which is so difficult when you're doing translation, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think if I had been writing this material with a Japanese audience in mind, I would have written it differently, because there's a lot of things that I wouldn't say we have a shorthand in the West, but there's a lot of things that we know. I don't have to explain, or if I do have to explain, that person is, beyond my reach anyway. But there's certain things I just don't have to explain, particularly to Americans, for example. But I wasn't writing for an American audience, but that would be the audience that would be the audience that needs the least explanation. But I think Japanese readers would probably need the most. I'm talking about things that are just obscure over here. I think, particularly the parts that take place in the U.S. Now, the parts that take place in Japan, they can probably wrap their minds around for the most part. Even though I put it in, I couched it in language that might be troubling for the Japanese readers if it's translated too honestly. I'm not sure how I've been interacting with the translator, and I feel like he has a grasp of what I need. It's not necessarily a straight translation, but an interpretation of the work into a language that's not going to that's going to be comprehensible to and well received by the Japanese reader, as opposed to in with my original tone in mind, because my original tone is a little abrasive, I would think, for a Japanese audience. But for a Western audience, it was a necessary kind of wake up. This is something that you need to be thinking about. But anyway, but the subjects, the areas of the book that took place in Japan, they're not of that nature. They are just my how would I say this? I was aware when I wrote them that because originally much of the parts of the book that took place in Japan, they were written on my blog initially, so they came from the blog to the book. So when I wrote them originally on the blog, I realized that there was going to be all kinds of readers, not just Westerners, but Japanese readers as well. So I was very careful with how I said a lot of things. I was careful that, because that's the best thing about blogging. You learn the diversity of the world through blogging. This blogging helped me become a much better writer, because in the comment areas, you get to learn, how your work is being received immediately, and you can learn and modify your tone accordingly, post by post by post, So I was able to refine and mature my voice almost, in real time. So that was great. So those posts that were included in the book, they were tight, and they were. I think that anyone from any particular culture or background will be able to read them and not feel like this is an attack on Japan or on Japanese culture or Japanese people. This is just my observations as a non-Japanese living here, and how I view what was going on and how I perceived it and how I feel like things could be done differently or improved and whatnot. So I think those are going to be the easiest chapters for Japanese audience to digest. But the stuff that takes place in the States, I don't know how that's going to work. I'm curious myself how that's going to be received. I'm not even, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the person doing the translation, he's Japanese, so he's and not westernized Japanese. He's Japanese. So I think that, and he read the book, and he's like, and from conversation with him, he fully gets it, and he fully understands how why I organized the book the way I did, and I think he understands how he could present the material in a way that the Japanese audience can fully understand where I'm coming from. I
That's
hope.
interesting. Have you learned a lot about the differences in a Japanese novel through your translator? Has he been giving you some advice about maybe the style or the format, or is it just a translation kind of in the style originally that you wrote?
Well, that's the question, right? I can't read the Japanese, so I really can't answer that question except from what he tells me. And from what he tells me, it's he once he's done, I'm going to share it with some of my Japanese friends to try to before it goes public. I'm going to try to get some feedback from a lot of my my peer editors, my peer readers, and try to get an idea how well he did what you're saying. But right now, I can't really say, and I couldn't say it even if I read the thing, because my Japanese reading is okay at best.
Yeah, I love this picture. You're going through the transcript over and over again, right? And going back and forth with him as he's translating. And how was it now that you've had some distance from when you originally wrote the book? How was it going through it again now to do the audiobook and to do the translation?
Um, Say it again. I'm sorry. The question was kind of confusing. Say it
So
again.
so there's a bit of distance from time distance.
Oh,
Um,
between when I wrote the book and now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how is it going through it for the audiobook, going through it for the translation? Are there things that you wish you had changed or you're
Yeah.
pretty happy with it still?
It's hellish. It's hellish because I am not the same person who wrote that book 10 years ago. I've grown since then, leaps and bounds, and some of my ideas and some of my philosophy, even my approach to Japan has evolved since then. And but I have to keep it true to the original, right? I can't just you know update my ideas. I and the publisher wants me to keep it true to the original thing. So
Yeah.
he's
Like
paying the bills. They're paying the
there's
bills.
there's some things that I read and I was kind of cringing because it's so sexist. Some of the parts were so sexist, but that is very honest and true to your situation when you came over in your 20s or just, coming over and being excited at so much attention and stuff, and that's part of the story, but that must, there must be certain things that are hard to read now.
Yeah, yeah, I cringe. I really cringe. But and I know which chapter you're talking about. It's a very controversial chapter, but I think a lot of people respect me for going there because this is something that a lot of them, particularly the men, of course, the men here in Japan, foreign men who come here, that's the life they're living here.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, and but nobody talks about it. Everybody kind of, you know,
Yeah.
they're afraid to go there because it deals with it deals with issues of racism. It deals with issues of misogyny. It deals with sexism. Sexist ideas, chauvinism, and all these kind of subjects that people are like, what? Let's just stick to temples and onsens and stuff like that. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
But
But I'm glad you did, and
I'm glad I did too. I don't regret
very
it. It's just
honest.
that I I don't know how a Japanese readership is gonna once they hear it put out there like that, like oh what? But it's like retaliatory dehumanization. It's kind of that kind of idea. Maybe people are like what what and that's where I went with the book because those are some of the feelings, the complicated feelings I was, feeling at that time. It was just kind of, wow. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
It'll be interesting.
I expect some controversy, and controversy is not always a bad thing, especially for a book.
Oh, and
So
it'll be an interesting discussion, I think.
yeah.
Marion has a great comment here. She says, it's all up to your translator, but being available for questions and advice will help him so much she's a translator, so she appreciates that.
Well, thank you, Marion. Yes, I am. available for him, if he needs advice and he has questions. So hopefully, yeah, that helps improve the finished product.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I, for one, am very excited to see the response once the whole issue about the empty seats is very clear to the Japanese audience. So there's certain parts of it that I'm hoping will create a very positive discussion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've gotten a preview of some of how that discussion might go because I've done some articles that touch on that for Toyo Keizai, which is, targeting a Japanese readership and more reflective of my current philosophy as opposed to how I addressed it back then. And so I've heard how a lot of people feel, and yeah, it's going to generate some conversation if the book, you know, if it does well, it's going to definitely prompt some interesting conversations. I'm eager to be a part of them.
Well, I'm hoping, since you got this award for one of your articles, was that with Toyo Keizai?
That
That
was
that's a really good sign that there is an openness or acceptance of these kind of ideas to be brought across. What do you think?
well, it wasn't a award from the people, from the readers. It was an award from the paper. So I don't know if that's a way to gauge how people are going to be receiving it, but I mean, in general, when I talk about these complicated issues, I think a Japanese response is very similar to the way a lot of the white Westerners have responded, which is more race talk. Do we have to keep talking about race? Oh, come on, can't we talk about basketball or something like let's talk about something else. Change the subject. It's that kind of thing. It's like I change the subject if police stop killing us and we stop having to deal with the repercussions of your mentality. Yeah, I change the subject. But that's just something that what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And the same thing here in Japan. Japan is even worse in Japan because they really don't even they most people are incapable of acknowledging the fact that there's racism here. They really think that this is a paradise and you should shut the hell up because no police officer is trying to kill you here. So why are you, what are you talking about? So that kind of thing. That's Japan, and that's the kind of comments that I see on Yahoo and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, it's like, come on, yeah, we discriminate. People discriminate. Yeah, we don't want to live next to you. That doesn't mean we hate you. We just, you're noisy. You're noisy. You don't handle your garbage well. You don't separate your garbage well. So, so they're okay with labeling and stereotyping you, but they're not okay with listening to you address how that's problematic and how that's diminishing your quality of life.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time too. It's such an important issue. Our home is in Japan. We live here. We're invested in this society and culture, and we want the best for this society and culture. And any progress in terms of sexism, racism, moving forward in a positive and honest way with integrity is good for Japanese people. It's good for everybody who lives here. So that argument, I get it a lot when I complain about things could be more sustainable. Go back to America. Look how
Right.
bad it is in other countries. Yes, that's true. There are, certainly countries and situations not as good, but I live here and I want Japan to be the best it can be because I love Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. That's me. What you just said is my feeling exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know. I think that it's like some people feel it's not your place to address these issues. You're a non-Japanese. You're a foreigner for life. You're a tourist for life, and you have no place, in our affairs in that way. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like,
And
I'm vested in this society. I'm a homeowner. I pay my taxes. Come on.
yeah,
How-
I I'm bringing up your tweet right here. To me, loving Japan, I love this. I'll put it
Mm.
full screen. To me, loving Japan doesn't mean you overlook the flaws and refrain from calling her out on her bullshit. That's not love. That's crazy. Loving Japan is making her best interest and well-being a priority in your life. I am as Japanese as I'll ever be. Japan is my love and my home. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're a great writer. You're a talented writer.
Thank you.
You should keep doing that.
I shall. I think I will. Thank you for that advice. I think I will. Yeah, I'll keep it up. I think my writing is sustainable.
Yes. Yes. And your comment about writing the blog and how that made you a better writer. And I think last time we were talking about how you're an avid reader. You read 30, 40 books a year, and that makes you a better writer. Is there any other advice you would give to any people who would like to be better writers out there?
What did I say before? Just write too. Well, like I mentioned earlier about the blog, I think blogging, and I know it's like, I don't know I don't know much about the blogging world now, but um, when I was blogging, it served several purposes. One is kind of like exercise. You're exercising that writing muscle. It needs to be exercised just like any other muscle. So that's one purpose it served. Second purpose is, like I mentioned, that it enables you to refine and mature your voice, interacting with an audience, so you can get a a better idea of how your work is going to be received. And then the third objective I had with blogging was eventually to reach the attention of some of the gatekeepers and editors and publishers out there. And that's exactly what happened. Japan Times came a knocking, and so yeah, just write for free, because I wasn't making any money on this blog. So don't be thinking about making any money, because generally once you start trying to monetize your blog, people are going to get turned off by that, or it's going to shift your focus a little bit. Just focus on being creative, writing consistently, and keep that up for a while, and focus on the kind of feedback you're getting. Write work that generates, hopefully you'll be able to generate some feedback. But write about the things that you care about. Write about things that impact your life. That not necessarily things that but things that things that you feel. Things that you that evoke an emotion within you. Because if it evokes your emotion from you, there's a good chance it's going to evoke emotions from other people too. Because we're all kind of linked in that way. And just do that, and that will improve your writing. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Isn't that something that you often hear from writers is you can't stop yourself. Like you just have to get it out. When you see something that evokes a response, that's the time to write and share it and hopefully create discussion. Is that kind of how you feel?
I do feel that way. I think that, however, you got to be careful with that. I guess it depends on. Well, you know what? It's up to you actually, because I've seen it work out when people when what occurs to you as important, what evokes emotion from you, just happens to be some really outlandish, outrageous stuff, and people just put it out there, for public consumption. But sometimes, people respond well to the crazy. So there's no way to tell you, what you should and shouldn't put out there. Just follow your feelings, follow your instincts, and be courageous. Don't be afraid. Whenever you feel like fear is telling you don't do something, question that shit. Just question it. Not that fear is a bad thing. I mean, of course, fear can save your ass sometimes, but question whenever you're afraid to say something. Somebody makes you afraid to speak your mind and speak your heart and speak what you feel is truth. Question that shit.
Yeah. And I think the original title I had for today's talk was speaking out, speaking truth to the media in Japan. I think the media, I mean, you've done that so often and with such success. The media in Japan often has kind of a reputation of not really being a free press. And, so if you can make any inroads with the media in Japan, I think that's progress. You feel like you've kind of been able to make some progress?
Yeah, definitely made some progress, but then there've been some setbacks too. It's hard to really gauge whether you've. It's difficult to say. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. It's difficult to say. I mean, I addressed blackface, and then there hasn't been any blackface in media since the last time I addressed it. So I feel like, whoa, maybe I played a role in the ending blackface in Japan as far as the major media is concerned. But that could end next week. Some knucklehead producer doesn't know anything about what I did 2-3 years ago, and then they're gonna put, so everything has to be taken with a little, and also, for example, I was invited to TBS to do a presentation there about why blackface is problematic, and I went down there and I gave them a major presentation. It was so well received that they even televised it. So it was that type of thing. The next year, they had a white supremacist on there explaining Black Lives Matters. That's Japanese television. You never know what you're going to get from these guys. So I think you got to keep pushing them. People say, "Oh, why you keep doing it?" Because they had a white supremacist explaining Black Lives Matter to Japanese people. That's why I'm talking about race. Because if I don't, a white supremacist is going to do it for us. Somebody has to do it who knows what the fuck they're talking about and cares, about Black lives. So anyway, don't get me uptight. Don't get me started. The media here, even NHK, 1 year when 2019 or 2020, 2019, they did this beautiful segment on the relation, some of the parallels between the experience of Burakumin here in Japan and the experience of people of African descent in the U.S. And there are a lot of parallels I learned while filming that particular program. And it won the Japanese equivalent of an Emmy Award. So it was very well received. And I was like, wow, all right. And then the following year, NHK did that nonsense with the explanation of Black Lives Matters with the freaking rioters dancing in the streets. And, what I'm saying? So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. There is no, I don't know what the end point is. I don't know when I can stop and say, oh, we've made progress. This is, I can stop talking about this and whatnot. But I do feel like, for example, in 2015, when I started writing my column, Black Eye, at that time, there weren't really that many people here, and there weren't really that many writers and content creators that were focused on addressing the ignorance gap here as far as information that Japanese have about people of African descent and what we're doing here. So that void was filled with, they're raping girls in Okinawa and shooting, killing cab drivers in Yokohama. That void was filled by the Japanese media's idea of what kokujin means. And I said, someone needs to talk about what kokujin means from a Black perspective. And that's why I started Blackguys, kind of a PR vehicle for enriching the image of Blackness here in Japan. That's why I started it. But since then, there have been a lot of YouTube channels like the Black Experience in Japan and all these types of. There's a lot of people now talking about and showcasing and profiling people of African descent here and giving us more. There's more platforms and more outlets for this information to get dispersed in Japanese and in English. That makes my job a lot easier, and I feel like I can slow down now. I'm not the only one out here doing this. I feel great that I've shown other people that it's okay. You don't have to be afraid to talk about Blackness here. I think a lot of people were. A lot of people were like, let's not rock the boat, let's not, it's not anger to, the people here. And I'm like, no, I think this boat needs a little rocking. I think things need to be shaken up a little bit, just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, because there's some shit here that needs to be addressed. So I felt like I showed people that it was okay. You're not going to be castigated and hung out to dry if you do address these types of things, and that's great. Yeah. That's progress. So if there's for me, that's the greatest sign of progress here in Japan, that many content creators feel like it's okay to talk about these types of issues. Yeah.
I've, since we were talking last time, there's the Black Creatives collaboration going on and trying to promote different Black business people who are doing great businesses around Japan. I think in the photo, the program you were in NHK, she's in Curly and Kansai, one of the women.
Oh yeah. That's my girl, right?
Yeah. And there was a lot of very positive momentum in gathering people in the Kansai area for the Black Lives Matter protests. They've done a lot of events since then. I had a chance to talk to Ayana Wise. That was a lovely conversation.
Oh yeah,
she's doing some great stuff. So it may be thanks to you, I would say, that people feel a bit more comfortable with getting out there. You've been doing it in Japan for a long time.
I have, and I think. I mean, I wasn't the first. There were people before me. I'm not saying I'm some type of pioneer in this type of area, but I think I played a significant role in that. So I'm very I'm proud of that, and I'm gratified by the response. So yeah.
I had a chance in the series to talk to Karen Hill Anton.
Oh yeah.
And she really paved a much easier path, not only maybe for Black people in Japan, but also for Western moms in Japan. For, like her column with the Japan Times was a real lifeline for a lot of international families, I know. So there's some great, and then would you encourage Black people to come and live in Japan? Is it still an accepting and wonderful place to be?
Accepting is a strong word. Yeah. It's still a wonderful place. It's still a wonderful place. Accepting is we'll get there. We'll get there. But definitely a wonderful place. A safe place.
Accepting, Lumo says. Yeah, sorry.
Accepting the other, the opposite. It's a very accepting place.
But we have to be careful not to other all Japanese people as well.
I'm not othering. I'm very careful with that. That's one of the ways I've matured over the years. That I'm very careful to put modifiers on everything I say, some and most and kind of, because I'm very conscious that all the progress I've made in Japan has been with the assistance of my Japanese friends and family. So in no way do I feel like it's a us versus them scenario. I think the problem is when we get into that us versus them mentality, and then it creates a dynamic that's never going to be resolvable. So let's, I try to refrain from that as much as I can. And that wasn't always my position, particularly some of the times when I was blogging. So sometimes when I read that old stuff, I'm like, but I don't want to delete it because I want people to see I've grown, my growth over the years, But then sometimes people read that and say they don't realize that was 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And then they're like, you said. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So sometimes I want to just shut down that whole blog stuff because some of that stuff is cringeworthy, I would say. But a lot of it I'm really proud of. Actually, I'm proud of all of it. I don't care. It's just, that's what I was thinking then, and this is what I'm thinking now. And, I've grown.
It's where you came from, right?
It's where I came from. So, yeah.
No, but I get it. And I often, like many things, we have to keep ourselves in check too, right? Like what we say is meaningful to people listening around us. And what we do is also powerful. So trying to act in a way that we would like, it goes back to the Bible, do what you would like to have people do to you, right?
Basically, you treat people the way you want to be treated. I was talking before about just I don't know. I'm a better writer than a speaker, obviously, but
you're a great speaker as well. I think last time we were talking about your TEDx talk on Koto and Mono.
Yes, we were. Yeah, I mean, the TEDx talk, this was something I rehearsed so many times. You'd be like, really? You said that 1,000 times? Yeah, maybe I said that talk 1,000 times. So that was so well rehearsed. Right now, this is live, unfiltered, raw. Why you say the MTV unplugged? This is unplugged me. Unplugged me is not as eloquent as that TED talk, but I have moments of brilliance.
I think, some of the things that you've said tonight, it comes from your practice of writing. It's in your head. Sometimes the magic of live is that it brings out certain responses that you wouldn't have thought of to write, right?
This is true. I mean, even when it's like freestyling, like you see a rapper freestyle, sometimes what comes out is, it's like, oh, wow, I said that. Let me write that down, Yeah.
It comes from your subconscious sometimes, right?
Yeah, it comes from the subconscious. Some people think it comes from the spirit. That's what the word inspiration comes from, right. The spirit. So, yeah, I trust the spirit. I'm not a religious person, but I believe in spirituality, and I believe that there is a spirit that, call it the muse, call it what you want, but it's a factor in creative writing, and I respect that factor. I don't ignore it. I don't think that writing is pure brain work. It ain't. There's something else going on there, and inspiration is a good word for it.
Yeah. I think last time you were talking about how your mom was an activist in the 60s and 70s in the US.
Right.
Do you come from any other writers in your family as well?
Writers?
No writers. Just activists.
Writers in my family? No. I think I'm the only writer. My brother is an artist, and there's creative people in my family. Musician. My father's musician, but writer. I think I'm the one with that. I got that gene. I didn't get the drawing gene. I draw stick people, but I got the writing gene. So.
What's your process? Like, do you write early in the morning? Do you go for a bike ride and then write?
I don't have a process as such. It's just I get an idea. I play around with it. It depends on what I'm writing too. Like if I'm writing an article, I get the article. That's different than the process for like like purely creative writing. It's like the article idea is mostly nonfiction, whereas the creative writing is something else. But then there's this kind of like some of the blog posts I might write about something that happened with Mickey while we're DIYing and stuff. So that would be a combination of the nonfiction and the creative writing elements. And that's why I think that people are so entertained and compelled by these stories, is because of I'm taking like normal everyday things and kind of infusing them with my creativity. And I think that's the appeal of these types of stories. And so that my style is basically just looking at what's actually happening and trying to find a creative way to convey it to the audience, an entertaining way, or create, and I, this style has been called creative nonfiction. And many people have mastered this style, and I read these writers who've done that. Like, anyway, there's several writers who write like this. I can't think of their names right now, but I read them, and I kind of used to copy their style, emulate, and then I started developing my own voice and finding my own voice and my own way of doing it, and it's really working out well. So I'm gonna stick with it. My next book is going to be a collection of these types of creative nonfiction stories about. I'm working on a book about Mickey and I building a house, and her DIYing and just our relationship, because I found that a lot of the stories I write about Mickey are just so. They've been so well received by readers. So I'm like, let me just make a whole book about Mickey, because she's worthy of a whole book. She's a book dying to be written. So I'm just gonna write that book and get that out of my system. And because I she's kind of jealous because my first book was dedicated to my ex-girlfriend who passed away. She's like, when are you gonna write a book dedicated to me? I'm like, all right, it's coming. So I gotta get that one out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
I love your comments on social media that you said, oh, today I was on NPR. I told Mickey I was on NPR, and she said, what's NPR?
Yeah, she's so cute, ain't she? Because like, yeah, but this is how she keeps me grounded,
Yeah.
She pretends she doesn't know. I'm like, I'm gonna be on BBC tonight. She's like, BBC? What's the BBC? So yeah, she's cute.
I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, because sometimes you are a commentator on BBC or NPR,
Right.
the radio interview recently.
Mm-hmm.
How do people find you? Is it through your website or through your Japan Times articles?
Well, now I'm on their calling list. Whenever there's anything having to do with Japan, they're going to hit me up. But originally it was because of the Twitter, social media, and that kind of thing. My name was always in the media. Plus, I got the column, and I'm out there. So yeah, my name is out there. So they got wind of it. Any enterprising reporter could find my name with no, it's not hard.
Well,
so
you've also written for the Washington Post.
Right. I wrote for the Washington Post. Yeah. About Naomi Osaka and stuff like that. So, yeah, my name is out there. So, it's easy for people to, if they're looking for somebody to comment on anything having to do with diversity or inclusiveness or, race issues here in Japan, they're going to probably come across my name at some point.
That's great. It's nice to have you representing the experience in Japan, I think. This time, NPR was asking you about the Black Lives Movement around the world. They were doing a feature, right?
Right. Yeah, it was interesting what they did, because it was kind of a follow-up to what's happened with Black Lives Matters and whatnot. And it was good. I was able to give them some good information about how progress is being made over here in Japan. So and the role I played in some of it. And I don't know, as I was talking to him, I was like, oh wow, yeah. But yeah, I'm really proud of that stuff. I really feel like you know, a lot of progress has been made, and not just in Tokyo, and not just, in connection with things that I've worked on, but, like you were saying earlier, in Kansai with Ayana, and, in Hiroshima and there's Black Lives Matters branches all over the country. It's not even just these two major prefectures, but all over the country, there's different ones that have popped up. So it's great, that people are have been encouraged and inspired to get involved in this, and I was happy to share that with NPR, and they shared it with the world, so that was great.
Yeah. Let's talk about the most recent news that you've commented on about the Chauvin case.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, in your social media, you said justice is therapeutic, injustice is poisonous.
Yeah.
And we're going to need a lot more justice to stop expecting injustice to prevail. So are you tentatively hopeful that this is a step in the right direction, that things are becoming more sane, or is it hard to hope still?
Well, I think like maybe a few days or a week after that story broke, there was another story talking about how they're going to in Minnesota. I'm trying to. Maybe it was national. I can't remember. Oh my God, I can't remember. But I think there was a national story about they are going to reevaluate some of the
voting. Is it about voting?
No, not about voting. It's about police.
Uh-huh.
And I think the Department of Justice is going to issue guidelines for police hirings. This is progress,
right?
And putting a obvious murderer in jail is not progress. You know what I mean? I mean, it's unfortunately, even to have to view that as progress is kind of nauseating.
It's really nauseating.
It is, right? It's like, oh wow, yay! They put a freaking obvious murderer in jail, yay! The reason that's a thing is because so many of them walk.
Yeah, it's what everybody's been saying is it was too much to hope that it would obviously happen. That there's been too many cases where it didn't happen, so people were still kind of really hoping that justice would prevail.
Malcolm X once said, if you stab me in my back and you pull the knife out a couple of inches, that's not progress. So that's what I see when I see this. This is not progress. This is pulling a knife out of my back a few inches. Even if you pull the knife completely out of my back, that's not progress. Saying you have to heal the wound you made with your knife. And this is not healing. This is just, So anyway, the other story was much more healing. That was progress. That they're going to explore ways to make sure that Chauvins and people like him are not capable of doing that again. They are not in positions of power where they can kill people with, mercilessly like he did to Mr. Floyd. That was just horrible. So
awful.
Yeah.
And thank God for that young woman who videoed it, because that was what people were saying was maybe the only way that he got convicted. I've heard some good news from other areas. They're trying to decriminalize, and not decriminalize, to try to take some of the work away from the police. So if it's a mental health call, there's a different social service. If there's a different kind of disturbance, there's a different service, that the police are not called for every single type of situation.
This is what is meant when people were talking about defund the police. they were not saying that, just let people, run rapid. They were saying put those funds into other services. Let those funds, fund these types of organizations, people that address, mental health and domestic disputes and stuff like that. So you don't have police soldiers damn near, come into a domestic dispute with a couple of angry couple and wind up killing the husband or killing the wife or something, accidentally killing a child. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, the kind of stuff that goes on in the Black communities, and it's definitely avoidable stuff. So yeah. That's progress. That's healing it. That's fixing the problem.
Yeah, and hopefully with Black Lives Matter, with the Chauvin conviction, that hopefully steps will be going in the right direction to make these changes and make community at large a bit more healthy in a way that's more healing, and everything's not left to the police only. Yeah,
I agree. Yep.
Yeah. Back to Japan and your future projects. Anything coming up besides your audiobook, your translation? You've got a lot going on. Are you still teaching as well?
Yeah, still teaching too. So
do you ever teach writing as well?
Yeah, I'm mentoring a couple of writers now. I do want to start a writing class, but I wanted to do this mentorship first to just kind of get a feel for how I am as a, I don't know, instructor of writing or a motivator. I think I've got some gifts in that area. So yeah, I'm thinking about starting a writing class. And if I do that, it'd probably be, well, with this COVID thing, I probably have to do it online initially, but at some point I'd like to do it in person.
Yeah, no, online would be good, like a masterclass, writing masterclass.
Yeah, that would be great, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
wow, that's a good idea. Masterclass.
You've got books under your belt. You've got, a column in Japan Times. I think it's time. Next step, masterclass.
Wow. Well, all right.
You heard it here, folks.
I did it. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. Masterclass. Because I see those things every time I go on YouTube. The advertisement for those, the masterclass, and they look so cool. And they got the coolest people. Every time I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sign up. But it's so expensive.
Yeah, no kidding. But like what you were saying before about your audience is the foreign audience or the English speaking audience for your books about Japan. And I talked to a few authors who have written books about Japan for the international audience. I think there's a lot of writers that you would have a great insight in terms of teaching them to write about Japan in English. So that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wrote it down. you don't have to sell it anymore. Sold. So
wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad to have an influence on you. That's great.
Yeah. I'm open to influences from all kinds of sources. So because you never know where the next great idea is going to come from. Sometimes you just you're cooking dinner or you in the bathroom, walking down the street, anywhere I can get the inspiration for a great story or a great activity to get into. So yeah, definitely. I always stay open to that.
When I talked to, I think it was Nick Bradley the other day, and he wrote a book, Tokyo, The Cat in the City, about different stories around Tokyo. It's a great book. And, and he was really inspired from living in Japan. David Mitchell, another author who was very inspired from his time in Japan. There's lots of great authors who really have great, interesting, diverse perspectives on experience in Japan. There's an environmental writer who's gone back to the States, but she was writing about forest foraging for food. Winifred Bird. That's an awesome book.
Okay. Wow, that sounds awesome.
Hannah Kirshner. She was writing about living in a small town, learning how to grow rice, make sake, lots of stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
These are all in the series. You can go back through and watch them.
Okay. I'll check them out. Thank you.
Thanks, Baye. So thank you so much, Baye. This was actually a very long talk because we kind of did it twice. I appreciate your patience and all of your wonderful insights today. Thank you so much.
And you're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.
That's awesome. And good luck with the audio version and the translation. I can't wait to see it out in bookstores. Very exciting.
Me too. All these years I've been here, one of my dreams has been to because my first two books, they were never in Kinokuniya and all that, because they were self-published. They were indie published, so they were mostly just available on the internet or through me. But I haven't really had my books in a bookstore, in a traditional brick and mortar kind of shop. So this would be the first time in Japanese. So this is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to this.
That'll be really fun. And
Yeah.
hopefully when it comes out, the COVID cases are a bit less and you can have some book signing and maybe some events.
I hope
That would be great. Yeah. Well, best of luck. Thank you so much, Baye.
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today and having patience with our technical difficulties. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we're talking to Jake Jung, who's a translator for anime and manga, games and videos. Very exciting. And he's also a great photographer for the Kagawa area. So that'll be fun to see. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye.
All right. Thanks, JJ. Bye-bye.
Bye.